Alright, so we are now with part 2. I got cut off. So I'm under the impression, if you want me to be perfectly honest, that that relationship was more than meets the eye between Olivia and Paula. I think Paula, I think Olivia was a little too invested into Paula's. Now, I don't know necessarily that perhaps they had this rivalry between them or some form of weirdo, I'm gonna top you, envy kind of relationship. Perhaps they were frenemies. That happens between women too, and as young as 20, if not younger, in high school. But nonetheless, she was too invested into Paula's relationship with Kai, who was played by Kiowa Kekumano. Beautiful, beautiful young man. But aside from the fact that whatever Paula seemed to have, Olivia wanted. She wanted first dibs for some reason, and they had already also had a prior indiscretion when Olivia, I think, also messed with Paula's ex-man. So of course it was already that situation. But then again, why pursue this friendship? So now this is where we get into a sticky situation because now more or less we know our players, and the trouble ensues because it starts to get messy and real quick. Paula, knowing that Olivia has this issue where whatever Paula has, Olivia needs to have too, or flirts with as well. I don't know if now, because of their prior issues where Olivia may have slept with Paula's man in the past, and though supposedly Paula says that she's over it, she really wasn't. She gets involved with Kai, which I believe she fall for. You know, I don't necessarily think that that was her original plan, but she ends up feeling some kind of way for him, knowing that Kai's working his tail off in this hotel where it used to be sacred ground for people of a particular tribe, for this particular area of Maui, I believe. And because of hedge fund tycoons, they took over the property, but he still had to feed and provide for his family, so he takes on a job there. But a lot of his family members, because of protests, because of other life decisions, have fallen into prison, and he's working his tail off to best provide for his family. Somehow Paul is able to corrupt him into thinking, you know what I think you could do for yourself. I can't give it to you, but I know that these people that I'm traveling with, are filthy rich, and they're not going to care about missing a particular jewelry or whatever the case may be. So one of these days that they're out on an excursion, she convinces Kai that his best option to leave this job and provide for his family is to steal Olivia's mom's bracelets, Nicole's bracelets, that were valued at like $75,000 a piece. It's like, an outrageous amount of money. And the hotel room where they're staying has a safe. Somehow, Paul is able to get the code and tells Kai, look, we're going scuba diving, whatever the case may be, the room will be empty. Now, in corrupting him, he does follow suit. Perhaps he's in love, perhaps also because he saw a way out for his family and does it. But then there's a miscalculation here because Paula wasn't anticipating that now Nicole and Mark were going to get into a whole fight and go back to the hotel room early. And now she's there blubbering, a blubbering mess, and Kai's stuck there because he already had gotten what he needed. He had the pin and was able to retrieve the bracelets, but his escape wasn't going to be easy because now they're there. So he has to now forcefully act like a criminal, and he hid his face, but again, to no avail. Poor Kai ends up in jail, in prison. He gets caught, the jewelry is returned to the couple. And what Paula thought that she was succeeding at really didn't get what she thought she wanted. Not only did she, sacrifice poor Kai and his freedom, but whatever havoc she thought would happen amongst the family, it really didn't happen that way. It actually brought them closer. Whatever indiscretion that Nicole and Mark may have been having because of the infidelity, the fact that Mark came to Nicole's aid and defended her as her husband, forget it. She just saw him with brand new eyes, and it brought them closer. Now, Quinn, who's the brother, also at first, was, lost kid, just constantly on the internet, no real purpose, no real drive for anything. And because Olivia forces him to sleep on the beach because she was like, oh, he's going to be up in our face, and the last thing I need to know is that he's going to be trying to do something to himself because my gorgeous friend is here in bikinis and whatever. So he's forced to sleep on the beach, but he has an epiphany and he realizes his true purpose is there's some connection to the sea. Now remember, this relates to real life because a lot of people, when they're seeking an escape, all of a sudden they see like all their troubles on the mainland disappear with just and of course it's like fantasy. That's where, hence Fantasy Island. This is kind of like a nod to Fantasy Island. But he's 16, he doesn't know any better, and somehow he's able to detach himself from his independence to the internet and found purpose in canoeing and the camaraderie that comes with that, and teamwork and whatnot, that to the point where he wants to stay there. And his parents are like, hell no, you're a minor, you're not staying here. That's cute, we can do camping and stuff like that, but you can't stay here, sorry. So as we revert back to our Shane and Rachel situation, past mommy being there, mommy dearest being there, she starts her fantasy marriage starts crumbling, and she starts realizing this is not what I want, and perhaps I should find an exit, maybe have this marriage annulled. She's at least brave to tell him what she's actually thinking, and he has a major temper tantrum and a meltdown. Just as, believe it or not, because mommy was there, they were able to switch into the pineapple room. That was the honeymoon suite that he had been fantasizing about, and you would think that he would be satisfied, but he's still up Armand's behind because he just doesn't like him. And when he finds out about the robbery, oh my God, he wants to have a complete hissy fit, wants to call his boss and basically get him fired. So in the process, when Rachel confesses to Shane, like, look what you're doing with this concierge, look what you're doing to this poor man's life, leave him alone, you are the biggest baby known to man. She throws in his face all of that, and he can't stand to be met with the truth, so he still needs to berate her and makes her realize real quick that she's one of the lucky ones. He could have not married her. So she's left with a dilemma. Should I continue with this asshat or whatever the case may be? She goes running to Belinda. Belinda, unfortunately, her dreams are also cut short because Jennifer Coolidge's character, Tanya, she's latched onto a new dude, and now she wants to spend her money with that man, so she pulls the ejection button on poor Belinda's dreams. And by the time that Rachel comes crying with her little, nonsense, and what should I do? Should I be still married to Shane? And she's like, girl, ask me on another day that I care, because she had already been tapped out. And that's the unfortunate part. We see how classism is infiltrated in this particular story. We see it in my last review with Candyman, but we see it very much here, the differences in class, and how, I don't know necessarily, I think racism played in this particular series. Not so much, not so overt. It was very much subtle, but classism is a big thing here. Like, it's between the series is between the haves and the has not, and how people with the haves can be pretty freaking shitty and rotten to the have nots, and people who, I have to give it to them, and I always bow down to people in the service industry because you really don't know. Like, I think it humbles you when you realize how hard it is of a position. And sometimes how people can even abuse it, because even Murray, who I love Murray. I love him from Looking. If you haven't seen Looking, please see it on HBO. It's also on HBO, still streaming. Murray, even though he seems exceptional on paper and really pulled together, but he's been through a number of things. He's been through addiction. He's sober now. I believe he's like 5 years sober on the show. But once he's met with Shane and a number of other pressures, it sends him in a tailspin. And when he finds the bag that goes missing, that was Paul and Olivia's bag of drugs. They had a bunch of, poo-poo platter of pharmaceuticals that he goes ham on. So because he's high, I believe that influences his decisions, and he uses his title to get what he wants. I believe there's I don't have the name for him right now, but there is somebody who works under him that he's incredibly attracted to, and he uses his power as leverage to seduce him. Like, look, I'm your higher up, and I'll give you whatever you want as long as you get high with me and allow me to take advantage of you. And hey, he sees it as a win-win situation, but he used his power there. So there's that. And then towards the end, between him and Shane, Armand and Shane, they go toe to toe to the point where Armand just loses it. He's like, you know what? I'm going to get fired anyway, so I'm going to go out with a major bang. And he's high on some kind of opioid. And you see him walking through their dinner service, and he's, exceptional. It looks like something straight out of like a cartoon. And he's going to go out with a bang. He gets super high in his office and then goes to Shane's pineapple room and leaves him 2 big gifts. Which I have to say, I don't know how the writer wrote that in. The most disgusting scene, but it looked realistic. He takes a crap in Shane's suitcase and leaves him 2 major turds in the suitcase. And I'm sorry, I don't know how the hell they did it, how they made it look so real, but it looked real. It looked like Murray was taking a crap. So the story is outrageous. It's something I've never seen before, and I appreciate that in storytelling. I don't want to see the main mundane, and no matter how cringeworthy, you just can't stop watching. So much to the point where it's only 6 episodes, you're left wanting more. And so because a lot of people watch this show and is really well reviewed, they're coming up with a season 2. Although honestly, I would love to see Murray back, but he dies at the end, so it wouldn't make sense unless they do the American Horror Story approach and they bring back the characters, but they're playing something else. And I loved it just because Murray's accent, his Australian accent. I mean, for the most part, Murray always plays American characters, but just to hear his native tongue, it was like I love that. I love that portion of the show. And I feel like sometimes we need to see that. We need to see more diversity on TV. So I highly recommend it. I gave it all the accolades, all the applause, because it was really out of the box. Kudos to Mike White for writing it. It's kooky, it's dark, but not too dark. Nothing that people can't handle. It's not the expected at all. So I highly, highly recommend it. Watch it on HBO Max. I'm thinking I'll be reviewing a number of other shows. And tell me, by the way, that the opening sequence, doesn't it remind you of Casa de las Flores, which is it's a Spanish series on Netflix. it pushes very much the Mexican culture, but the illustrations that you see in Casa de las Flores, which I don't know, maybe it's just because it's flowers and it's just the White Lotus, but it had kind of the same feel, so I don't know if they were influenced by La Casa de las Flores, but nonetheless, both shows are binge worthy. You should watch it. So stay tuned. I'll be reviewing. I'm gonna get back to American Horror Story, which their last episode, episode 4, I loved, and we're kind of ending the first portion of the double feature, and we're gonna be pushing into the second half. But to me, it's just as interesting, and I'm interested. I'm still very much interested how this season is gonna tie into all 10 seasons. So. But stay tuned for that review, and I will be back shortly. And enjoy this outro. And the music itself too. Tell me, they were excellent songs to like create that tension. You know, there were some like ambiance, meditation music, very Hawaii infused. But there were moments like this that you were like, it built tension. I think, honestly, the show was really well crafted. So, again, watch it on HBO Max. And stay tuned. If you like my videos, give us a like, subscribe, leave us a comment down below. Hit that notification button so you can be alerted of my next upload. And stay tuned for my next review. I look like Jennifer Coolidge. I was going for the young girls in bikinis, but I'm still pulling off Jennifer Coolidge. Alright, y'all. Till next time. XOXO, Nerdy Girl.